We're live. We're here. um, we're all ready, excited. We were just sharing some inflation puns and jokes that might come up as we go today. But in all seriousness, we've got some really amazing things to share. There's a new Bank on Yourself book coming. It's not out yet. It'll be here in a couple weeks, hopefully, knock on wood. And we've seen people on this call, the people we work with, our mentors, we've all seen this strategy help families weather all kinds of financial storms. And today we've got unique financial storms, inflation, volatility, AI, reshaping, all the things. And we believe Bank on Yourself is more relevant than ever. So we're going to dig into that today. Welcome, everybody. Let's go around and maybe introduce ourselves and what you're hoping to get out of the conversation.
I'll go ahead. I'm Brandon. I'm hoping to, again, we're in a really interesting world. It is so strange. I don't know. Did you know actually tomorrow is the rapture or something like that? Something's happening tomorrow.
Oh, it's today.
Or maybe
23rd.
today. I don't know.
As long as it wasn't yesterday.
So apparently that's happening. Anyway, we're in weird times, and I just want to share about what we do with the Bank on Yourself concept. Basically, I mean, like seriously, we're in weird times. Like, how is this relevant? And I love doing what I do to help more people. And Mark went off.
I got raptured. No problem.
Okay, he's gone. He's gone.
Come on.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm Christy. I am a Bank on Yourself professional. I work with Brandon and Amanda at Wealth Business Financial. We are just looking to educate people, help them make informed decisions, just give them a different perspective than their financial advisor is giving them.
Awesome. I'm Evan Greathouse, also Bank on Yourself professional. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. And just kind of helping spread the message about this amazing strategy. It's a game changer.
And Mark, who disappeared, I don't see him anymore. But Mark, are you there? And
okay, I guess we'll come back to Mark.
Really got raptured.
Yeah, seriously.
While we're waiting, those of
Whoa.
you joining us in the chat, share where you're joining us from. Love to hear from you in the chat there. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Sorry about that. Camera and microphone had some trouble getting all their details figured out. So I'm back, and my name is Mark Willis out of Chicago area. And, it's about time. I think we've had like a decade plus since Pamela's last book. And there's been so much change in our world today that you must give the world an approach to finance that's relevant for what's going on in our world today. There's been so much happening. We couldn't have foreseen the last time she published her book. So it's time that we really up our discussion and understand where we're at today. What's the times that we're living in? And is it still relevant to have something that's 200 plus years old in your portfolio?
Well said.
And
the last book was
Mark.
I think it's Brandon, but I'm hearing an echo.
I don't think so. I think it's Mark.
All right, I'll give it a try and see what's going on.
Yeah, Mark, you're echoing.
Okay. Lots of fun technical difficulties today. We're live, you can tell. So we're going to be talking about these things. I think the last book was published over 10 years ago. There was a previous book before then, over 20 years ago. So we're going to talk a little bit about 2000, the dot-com bubble that burst. We're going to talk a little bit about 2008, 2009, the great financial crisis and the Great Recession that followed. And then we're going to talk about now and what's going on. So before we jump into all that, start talking about the problem and then if Bank on Yourself's the right solution for it. Anything else anybody wants to add by way of introduction?
I think we got rid of the echo. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great.
You're good. I did want to say, like, I'm reminded of a episode we did in 2018. I think it was, maybe 2019. It was crazy things that could happen, and would banking yourself stand the test of time? Would it stand if crazy things would happen? Right. It was a Halloween episode that I did not think when we did that episode that everything would happen in the course of 5 years. I thought it was like maybe this could happen, maybe that could happen. Zombie apocalypses, rapture, I don't know, whatever. It's all happening and has happened. And I'm like, and this is what I'm excited about with this topic is because we're going to talk about, is it still valuable? And I think, shoot, if anything has said anything the past 5 years, yes, it is.
So true. Maybe we should do another episode, Amanda, where we talk about all the good things that could happen in our world. If we're that prescient, maybe we can bend the arc of history toward the good things. Since the last episode was our nightmare scenarios.
Heck yeah.
So go ahead. Who's next? Amanda, you are muted now. So she is.
Oh, can't hear. Okay, I'll speak up for you, Amanda. I'll speak up and just interrupt me whenever you are. I guess I passed the technical difficulties over to you. I apologize. So, and by the way, guys, as folks are watching, please feel free to leave comments. We'll be watching those and post some of those as well. Okay, so let's go through where things were in the wonderful year 1999. I was thinking about like the year before 2000, what the world felt like at that point. I remember those days very vividly, thinking, hey, there's a real possibility we'll be back to the Stone Age on December 31st, 2000, or 1999, I should say, December 31st, 1999, because everyone thought there would be a computer glitch that would kick us all offline, off the, not just the internet, but like the industrial age. We'd go back into the dark ages. And at this moment, Alan Greenspan had been sort of running the Fed, who had previously been a fan of the gold reserve, candidly, and getting us off of an inflationary spiral that began way back in the early 70s. But now it was very clear that he had really given up the gold standard and was pushing people into a low interest rate inflationary environment where 2% a year of stealing our money was normal. What? I mean, if someone came into your house and stole 2% of your life savings every year, would you lock your doors? Would you put in an alarm system? Would you stop that crook? Yeah, but it happens legally every year because of inflation. So anyway, we're back in 1999 and we're partying like it is. And we're hoping that we can make it through 2000 without going back to the Stone Age. And pets.com was going nuts. And Enron was the darling in the stock market. And if you remember, these days, it was a booming time. But I really wonder, like, what would have happened to our economy? What would happen to our, the marriage rates, the BMI around our waistline? What's our waist circumference? What would it all have done if we had gone back to the Stone Age for a few years? It probably wouldn't have taken long for us to redevelop silica and computer chips. But a 10-year break, what would life have been like at that point? These are thoughts while you're blowing the leaves in your front yard and showering or doing the dishes. But it really makes you think it was a very different world in 1999. And so fast forward, we don't go through a worldwide EMP. We don't lose our livelihoods. We continue through the bubble of the 2000s, the tech bubble that burst thereafter, crashing the markets by a significant amount, almost 80% according to the NASDAQ, 80% gone in wealth around tech stock. Fast forward then to the lower interest rates that the Federal Reserve pumped out, inflating what would then become the housing bubble. And in 2008, there was a major worldwide global financial crisis centered first around real estate, but became an asset bubble and then an everything bubble, which was now been reinflated since the quantitative easing, i.e. money printing, i.e. monetization of the debt, since 2009. And that's about when I got into the financial world business, where I was hearing the CPAs that I was working for at the time shouting, "I'm sorry, Mr. Client, but I'm sorry. I know you're 62 years old, but I just lost you half your life savings. I just lost you a third of your family's income in retirement, whatever." These are devastating things to try to do I mean, when you're trying to serve a family through financial planning, to have that conversation is it's like a fireman saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I lit the match and burned your house down." It's just a terrible thing you never want to say. So I'm going to pause there because that took us up to 2009, and then everything since then has been essentially inflating an everything bubble that brings us till 2022, where we had a slight correction. Well, I kind of went over something called the pandemic, which may have had an impact on many people's lives, health-wise, but also financially. But we kind of are brought up to the present in a very broad brushstrokes way without me rambling too long. Guys, what did I miss? What were the big themes that you would add to the last 25 years, quarter of a century at this point?
It's been a wild ride for sure. I mean, just everything you've mentioned there, plus some. And, before moving to Nashville, I lived in Midland, Texas, which, if any of our listeners are familiar with that area, it booms and busts regularly with the price of oil. And so it's been interesting to kind of get to see housing markets and everything, which, as we're going along here, inflation and everything it's getting out of hand, and especially in certain areas even more than others. Like Nashville has been a inflating market for the last 15 years at least, pretty much nonstop. And it's interesting because if you look at history, it can't go on forever either. So it's we're in a point in our history and in our lives, and where something's going to have to give. And I would love to hash through some of that with you guys today and see if we can't maybe warm up our crystal balls enough to tell us something.
Well, I would even go as far as seriously, I don't know about the Kimmel budget or Jimmy Kimmel.
Are we gonna go there?
Like the stocks went down on Disney or up and all this craziness, and I'm like, holy crap, because of late night, right? And so I think that's another interesting thing that I'm like, it's not just like the big things, but it's the little things as well. I guess that's big or little. I have no idea, but I'm like, is there another way? Like, I don't want to be dependent on Disney or anything else. Is there another way that we can go?
Yeah. Before we go there, I do want to talk about one other big thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently. I know, we're going to talk some about real estate and business owners today, but let's not forget about all the people that work at W-2. And I was in high school in 2000, so I don't really know how many layoffs there were during the dot-com crash. But I remember 2008, 2009, all the layoffs that happened then, people losing their jobs and not being able to find work for years, not just 6 months to cover emergency fund, but years. And then then after the pandemic, and during that time, we went through the Great Resignation, where lots of people chose to change careers, find more fulfilling work potentially. As we have more millennials and Xers and that kind of thing, we have boomers retiring in mass numbers, right? More and more of them every day. I don't know when that peaks or whatever. And then just today, I was listening to a podcast on the way to work, and they were talking about this thing I'd never heard of yet: high school graduate cliff. Did you know that starting in 2007, we've had less people being born every year? Or it's gone down significantly. We might have one uptick, right? 2020 babies, those kind of things. But we have if you look at birth rates, I looked it up. I found a 1980 to 2025 birth rate chart. And it blew my mind. You just see this huge drop off 2007 and beyond. I know if I was going through a Great Recession, I'm not having babies, right? A lot of people probably chose that, right? I can't afford to have a kid right now, right? More and more people are continuing to do that. So now we're 18 years later, we're experiencing that. And we're not going to have people going to colleges, buying stocks, right? Doing jobs, all the things we did before then.
Amanda, stopping right there on the buying stocks part. So if 10,000 baby boomers retire every day and need those dollars now to spend out of their 401ks that they've deferred for decades to spend at the grocery store. Who are they selling their stocks to if no one's born to buy them?
The companies doing all the stock buybacks.
Well, yes, for how long, right? For how
Right,
long? And with P&E ratios as high as they've ever been, historically speaking, and no one's there to buy your stocks when you're 72 years old, or as our friend says, when you're 82 years old, what are you going to do when you're 82 and there's no one younger than you to buy your stocks? What does that do to the price of stocks if no one's there to buy, or fewer people are there to buy them? They go down. So when you think that, when you, meaning all of us, think that stocks will forever go up and you'll have a 10%, 12% rate of return on average, and there's fewer and fewer people to buy those stocks, it's only clear to me, anyway. I certainly don't have that crystal ball warmed up just yet, Evan, but it seems as if we need something besides the stock market to depend on.
Yes, absolutely. I've got too many clients that I've spoken to recently who are, either asset rich and cash poor, or, just aren't really doing anything other than just letting it sit and in a volatile financial vehicle of sorts. And I just, my goal is to just hopefully like help them see that at some point there's going to come a day where they're going to need to access those funds. They're going to have an emergency, and you're not going to want to run out. And so many of my conversations lately have been around trying to figure out, how can we make sure that there is, one, that your money's there regardless of what happens in the economy, whether it's real estate or stock or whatever it is, and then two, that it's not ever going to run out. That's really the two key factors here.
Christy, I heard much from you. What do you want to add?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about a client that I had recently. We were talking, and she was talking about, kind of what she's done with her money. She kept it in cash. She didn't trust a lot of things, during COVID. And then, she thought it was safe there. Then after COVID, inflation spiked, and she realized, she was steadily losing the purchasing power, of her money. And, it's not really as secure as she thinks. It's not really doing what she thinks it's, going to do for her. And so, we've been having that conversation, and just, when you really think you have something that you can trust or rely on, then you realize, you need stability. And so she had the safety, but she didn't have the her money's not going to grow with the market, or with the economy.
Yeah, that's a great flip side to this. Is sure, there's been lots of people, that have accumulated money, right? Boomers, right? Those kind of things but there's also tons of people that have just let their money sit and do very little. Maybe when we had a little bit increase of interest rates, maybe they got a little bit more in that savings account, but not much. Probably for the last at least 18 years, if not longer, we've had really low interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think enough of the problem. I want to zero in on this 1 week of 2020. So Friday, March 13th, Brenda and I moved from Chicago to Cincinnati. We landed, signed our title, the moving truck got here. That's when everything shut down. Thankfully, I had prearranged our internet to turn on. I'm so glad I did that. Not because we wanted to watch Netflix during, the shutdown, but because Monday morning we were able to get back to work. And I look at that week, Monday, March 16th through Friday, March 20th, as the best week in my career, because we were able to let people know, hey, you might be paying extra for things. You might be losing income because you're forced to stay at home with your kids, not in school, but this is what we planned for, right? This is what we have the money for. And we can move forward with confidence, knowing that you have the emergency funds, you can get through this. As I've talked to people over the course of time, people that worked with traditional financial advisors were not getting those kind of calls. In fact, they were calling and not getting any answers because they were seeing the the wildest, volatility of the stock market in those next few weeks, and they were scared. They couldn't do anything, and they couldn't get a hold of someone to even talk to. So now we're here in 2025, 5 years later, plus a few months, and people are still scared. People are still asking lots of questions. We'd love to hear what things you're worried about in the chat. Please, share them with us. We're going to have some time for Q&A at the end, so throw those in there. We'll for sure talk about them if we don't talk about them as we go through this. But let's move into this. Like, why a new book? And what does Bank on Yourself look like in this place in 2025?
I would add, like, man, the reason the book is what has changed in 5 years since we've been even in this industry. Like, a lot has happened, a lot has changed that has really impacted us and made. We hear you a little bit, Amanda.
Sorry.
A lot has impacted us, changed. Things are not as it seems often. What's been interesting is when interest rates were low and everybody was like, I don't want to do banking yourself. The interest rates are so low. Why would I do that? I was like, well, the interest rates aren't always going to be that low. Eventually, interest rates are going to go up because of the amount of money going into into all the stuff that we got, right? All the money that we were printing. And guess what happened? 3 years later, interest rates go up and people are like, wow, you were right. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. But then now they're like, well, now I don't have any money to do it. And, and I just think when's the best time to plant a tree is definitely right now. And to be able to use it in high interest rates environments, low interest rates environments. Why a new book is because, man, we've seen all of it in 5 years. So kind of important to have that.
So I think there's definitely a sense that we're not through volatility yet, that there's going to be a consistent news cycle that throws sand in the air and then also real emergencies too. And many people are saying, hey, I can't wait around for things to settle down. I'm not getting any younger. My candles on my cake keep adding up every year. So what can I do now so that I'm prepared for an undetermined future? Like, is there anything that I can do that has put a stake in the ground and know with some absolute certainty, high degree of confidence, even guarantees that I'm going to make it, that my family's going to make it? There's a lot of anxiety around that. And there's an emotional weight to your decision. I heard someone say earlier today that every decision you make puts a mark on your soul. And I'm going to put that down for esoteric stuff, like religion, whatever, but also financial stuff. What you decide to do with your money will impact your emotions, your outcomes, your stress levels, your response time to threats. It's so cool when volatility happens now. With a policy, a Bank on Yourself policy, it's actually kind of it's a chance to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, but also possibly to position yourself in a positive way, even taking advantage of volatility. So you asked the question, like, why now? I think now is probably, it's always now, right? It's always today, and today is new and today is different. But there's been enough change, and we've talked a bit about that in our world, that we needed to incorporate the what ifs that we didn't think about before, like once in a lifetime pandemic. How does a life insurance company survive when more people are dying than expected in a given year? Well, we now see that. Shouldn't we have gone through an evening news cycle where all the life insurance companies were going bankrupt? Shouldn't that have been a 60 minutes expose that all these insurance companies were so underfunded and so razor thin margins that they all went belly up when a few extra people, God forbid, but they passed away in a worldwide once-a-century pandemic? That should have been a news cycle. I don't remember that happening. I don't know about you guys. There were certainly bank closures, right? Silicon Valley and so many others. And there will be more. I hate to say it. But could there be an opportunity here for us to learn the lessons of the last 25 years and the last, I guess, 12 or so years since Pamela wrote her last book, to say, all right, we now have more written records of the evidence of history that Bank on Yourself designed whole life insurance policies can withstand low interest rates for 40 plus years, artificially suppressed, by the way. And high interest rates, go back to the 80s. I mean, we're now in a high interest rate world. Some people wonder if we can push the beach ball under the water again with as much money as has been printed. So is it likely that we might return to high interest rates? And what are you going to do about it if we do? So those are just a few of the thoughts that are brought up in the brand new book.
Yeah. My favorite thing that she brings up in the new book, that it's weird calling it my favorite thing, but it's something that I know a lot of people feel, how do I make a decision around this? Mark, you were just talking about making good decisions, and how that leaves a mark on your soul. 100% agree. There's also the things we have no control over that leave marks on our soul. And one that touches us in a special way because we have family that live right there. We've helped care for those family when they needed it, is natural disasters. And according to this is straight from the book, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, natural disasters, we're talking about floods, tornadoes, wildfires, hurricanes. Nearly 6 million Americans were removed from their homes in 2022 and 2023, a record number. And 2024 saw a record number of major natural disasters, according to FEMA, which they report like every 4 years. So they're saying 2024 record number of natural disasters. So we've Brandon had family living in New Orleans when Katrina hit 25 years ago, and 24 years ago, many years ago,
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Sorry, yeah, 2005. That's right. We were dating at the time. They moved up to Chicago. We helped take care of them. But how are they going to pay for food, lodging, repairs, all the things, right, while you're waiting for a property insurance to pay out, if they ever do, right? I didn't put this stat in here, but in the book it talks about how many people wait for that claim that never comes because they didn't have the right coverage, or they weren't in a flood zone, or whatever it might be. And then I also think about the landlords. One of my clients who's a landlord. She owns property in Louisiana. Because she had a Bank on Yourself policy, she not only was able to weather the storm, literally, right, make sure she has the money she needs to have her options. She's able to get people back into their homes as their landlord more quickly, the homes that she owned. And because she had cash when no one else did, she was able to buy the homes close by that other people couldn't repair. They didn't have the funding to repair. They weren't going to get that claim. She was able to buy those homes, repair them, and get people back into those places to live, in a way that somebody that doesn't have that money available couldn't, right? No bank was going to give her a loan to do that, right? Or not, for certainly not 100% funding. All the things that kind of we think about, or we most people don't even think about unless you've experienced it before. And then if you've experienced before, you don't want to think about it because it's left a mark on your soul that is hard to remember, like hard to think about. Yet in preparation and putting that money aside and preparing, right, we're taught, get bottles of water, have evacuation route, all those kind of things, but also get your money ready for those kind of things, especially if they continue to increase in future years.
And maybe that's why we like this so much, is because after that hurricane, we've had other floods that have happened, and we've been able to use our policies to overcome not a big flood as far as in the like a hurricane, but our business was flooded for sure, and that was one of those things that definitely I'm glad we had our policy to overcome that, and basements and stuff. And so maybe that means I have lots of black marks because of that. But maybe I'm a realist too, and be able to overcome that, and not just for liability problems, but we've been able to do it to make good money decisions too, and make money. So it's not just for the problems, but also for opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just add something in. I feel a lot of times I'm asked, like, but what's the returns? What returns am I getting here? How much, whatever. And so that's, great. And, it's important for your money to grow. But another thing is, this is liquid money. This is emergency money. This is cash you can touch, here and now, when it's needed, as opposed to, chasing returns with, money that's locked up for an undetermined amount of time. So it's a big difference. It's kind of a mindset shift. That's part of educating.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
okay. Yeah.
Mark's going to share something, right?
Just related to what you just said,
We
Christy.
got a question in the chat too, so we're going to answer that question, David. Thanks for asking.
Great. Yeah, we can go there first. That's all right. Brandon, do you want to go ahead with the question?
Well, you could go with Christy, and then we'll go to the question if that's related or whatever works for you.
Yeah, okay. So, Christy, you brought up a great point. So, whole life insurance, that's what we're kind of saying underneath what we're saying, is something to pay attention to. But is it? Is it a waste of time? Is it a waste of money? Does it cost too much? Are the rates of return pathetically small? Is the stock market the best place to grow your money when you need to aggressively save over a long period of time? That's the key. Everyone thinks, when I'm younger, I should put more at risk. I should reach for that higher rate of return. That's false. It's false. We have a quarter century now. We have longer than that. I could go back to the beginnings of the stock market if you really want to see all of it. But just for the last 25 years, let's talk about the last several decades anyway. So I'm going to share my screen. I don't know how do I do that? I've pushed the button here. Does it appear whenever someone pushes a button on your side? Amanda?
I think Brandon or Amy, you might need to change the display so it's not just displaying us.
Ooh, that's cool.
Could feature one person.
Okay, I see Brandon is highlighted. Ah, there we go. Christy. Hi, Christy. All right, so if we can't do it, that's okay.
Is that related?
I'll go see if I can help Brandon in the other room.
Is that little share screen button in the middle of your screen not working for you when you press it?
It's showing up as I'm preparing to share it, but it's in the background, and it says that I can't put it on the public display until somebody pushes some button over there. So, don't worry, guys. We're all. Please understand, if you're watching this live, us financial planners are not Martin Scorsese, so we're not Steven Spielberg. So we would much rather be great at helping you grow your wealth than pushing the right buttons to create a CGI, masterpiece. Okay, so let's presume that you decided to put some money in the S&P 500 back in 2005. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the tech bubble. All right, in this little scenario. So you're youngin', right? You want to put your money somewhere where it can grow. And here's the S&P 500. The red line is the S&P 500 index. And in 2005, it was about 10,000 points. And as you can see, it went down to from 2005 to 2010. And then went up again. And then it went down again in 2020. And it's risen again now in 2025. So were there great returns there? I don't know. Look at this. You start here. You're basically back there again almost 20 years later. And you've only finally reached a little bit of a zenith now just 2 or 3 years ago from 2005. Now, there were higher returns, quote unquote, on an annual basis, on an average basis in the stock market. But when you build your wealth upon something that didn't go backwards ever, you can have a lower rate of return as long as it's going up in a linear trajectory. In other words, I would rather a lower consistent rate of return than a higher volatile average return. There's a big difference between average returns and real returns. The stock market's average return is higher than most whole life policies, but averages are meaningless. It's like saying I have an average weight, but that doesn't matter. It's like saying, hey, if I can't swim, can I cross the river that's on average 3 feet deep? No, I can't. I don't want to take that risk. If I can't swim and the average depth of the river is 3 feet deep, will I chance it crossing that river? Of course not, because there's going to be certain parts that are a few inches deep and a few parts that are 15 feet deep. I would much rather a non-volatile, no beta, increasing trajectory of my wealth from start to finish and at every point along the way.
So good.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
And I think also are we getting to David's question? I think this starts
Now's
too.
our chance to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of
So,
in there, yeah.
I'll read David's question. Just quickly looking over the book, my biggest question is why should I tie up money in a whole life policy instead of increasing my investment in dividend paying stocks or index funds? We could probably talk about this for hours. In fact, you probably should have a conversation with your favorite bank and yourself professional and have lots of conversations about this. Here's one thing that I think a lot of people overlook is while Bank on Yourself does a lot, it doesn't do everything. So it's a Swiss Army knife. It's got a lot of tools in there, but it's not a one size fits all. So we're not saying tie up your money, don't do anything else, right? Anything like that. You could actually borrow from a whole life policy to go buy some stocks when they're on sale, those kind of things. But also one of the things I love about Pamela's book is that she added some new things in there. It's not all just about whole life insurance. She also talks about annuities and the good, bad, and ugly, the different types of annuities. And if David might be looking for income, right? He wants that income from a dividend paying stock or, something like that. That might be a better fit, not a whole life policy. If that's what you want for income, that's what some people choose dividend paying stocks for. And so you might not, if you wanted income tomorrow, Bank on Yourself might not be the best thing. It could be something else. And then we could also talk about long-term care insurance, which Pamela has a big chapter about how we pay for long-term care. And the dividend paying stock compared to Bank on Yourself is going to do very different things, or from an annuity in that kind of situation too.
Well,
go ahead.
And going back to the idea of the and asset, couldn't you do both? Like put it through a policy and buy those things? Or I like our business name used to be Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. A lot of times we need to be disciplined in percentages and save and thinking about cash flow, not necessarily rate of return, but cash flow. And is that cash flow working? Whether it's an annuity, whether it's dividend paying stocks, whether it's life insurance, doesn't matter. Do we have the checks coming in monthly to do what we want to do when we want to do it? That's really what we're asking. And does this Bank on Yourself have some value to it in a world where there's so much craziness? And so how do we have that and build not just for, I have $1 million in a retirement account, but am I able to live when I'm 92 or 82 or 72 and have that cash flow? That's a bigger question to me.
David, you bring up such a great comment, and I think the chart may have some answers to your question. Someone once told me when they looked at their policy, this is a client of someone else's that I was talking with, and actually he gave us a chart, and he shows his actual net worth. So if you guys want, I can go get that episode, and the show notes has his net worth chart, literally, where he invested in stocks, mostly dividend paying stocks, through the bubbles and bursts that I showed you guys previously. And then in 2009, he started his first Bank on Yourself policy, and his net worth has tripled ever since. So after a decade of basically hoping that the market would do what everyone says it's going to do. So David, your great question is key. The first thing I would say is what this gentleman said, which is when you put your money in things that don't lose money, you only make money. That's something to keep in mind, because where you put your money makes it act differently. So when you put your money in things that don't lose money, you only make money. That's one of those BFOs, as my family calls it, the brilliant flash of the obvious. But it's an important one for us to remember when we're thinking financially speaking. When you put your money in things that don't lose money, you only make money. The second and last thing I'll just say is, David, you bring up a great point, but I'm going to take issue with the words tie up. And Amanda, I think I see you're pumping the fist, so I'm going to pass the ball over to you, or if you would like to jump on that train and ride it, I would be glad to pass the ball.
Well, no, I kind of alluded that too when I was making my comments back as well. Like, the money's not tied up, right? We have people that put their money in, and within the first 30 days, they have money back available in their bank account to do whatever is needed, and they keep getting the same guaranteed growth in dividends if they never took that money out. We want to be responsible, right? We want to be good bankers to ourselves, but we get to do that. I'm talking to somebody today. It's about to put money into the policy and then go buy a car within the next 30 days. He could just as easily buy dividend paying stocks or whatever it is. So, and then there's also diversification. Very important. A lot of people talk about you want to diversify. In fact, index funds, they might diversify into some stocks, some bonds, right? Those kind of things. I see your setup here. That's another thing to consider. Is a lot of people, when they're thinking about diversification, they diversify in the same place, right? We actually, since publishing the last book, we've had a year where both stocks and bonds went down at the same time. That has never happened before that we know of. And people didn't even think that could happen. It's supposed to be the opposite, right? When stocks go down, bonds go up. When bonds go down, stocks go up. They're not supposed to move in correlation with each other, and yet they did. So, David, I would very highly suggest exploring what diversification looks like for you at your life stage, how that's going to change over time. And like our friend Lester is his first name, likes to say, what will you do when you're 82? Do you still want to be managing those same things? And what does it look like to chart that journey from where you are now to where you really want to be?
Also want to be thinking about taxes as well in those kind of scenarios. Is what is the tax rate going to be, and whatever, like the VT sax, can you eat that? Again, going back to income, we need to make sure we still have the income to do what we want to do when we want to do it. I don't care. I was thinking about this even again with the Disney thing. A lot of people have a lot of investments in Disney, and then the stock prices are going down, and it'll go back up. It changed in 3 days, 4 days, but that volatility affects them.
So a lot of great questions here that we're hashing through and everything. Part of the thing that I would always just keep in mind is that, and I think Mark hit on this a little bit, but and everybody's kind of talked a little about it, but it's does having access to your money when you need it take away from any of your investment options? That's always the question that I return whenever I'm asked, well, why would I invest in, put my money in, in whole life rather than just putting it into, the stock market or real estate? And the truth of the matter is that you don't have to choose one or the other. You can do both. And, but the growth that you're getting within your cash value is the constant uninterrupted compounding growth that Mark is talking about. So, and it is actually a wonderful thing whenever you do experience a loss. The growth from your policy can actually help mitigate some of the risk, some of the downside, and over time offset much of the bad things about investing in things that are taxable and things that can go down. And things that have fees. Another, aspect that hasn't been thrown out there is like fees can be involved whenever you're investing in this thing. And if you have a 401k that truly doesn't have any fees, well, I applaud you. Well done. But those are far and few between. Vast majority of people don't have a clue what kind of fees they're paying on their qualified accounts. So, access when you need it. That's absolutely key. Tax-free, penalty-free. That's really kind of important thing for me.
Great stuff. I put the chart up here. This is the gentleman who I mentioned earlier, Dan Proskauer. He's an engineering vice president of engineering at United Health Group's Optum unit. Spent 30 years as a professional in the semiconductor and healthcare industries. Point is, he's a smart cookie. and he's an engineer by trade and by personality too. And so he went through a long story with me on our episode on Not Your Average Financial Podcast, where we cover his experience going through the stock market bubbles and bursts from 1999. This is his actual tracked net worth in Quicken. Every month he'd track his net worth, and up and down the market he would tumble, basically flat for the better part of a decade. Yeah, so he would have paper gains and paper losses, but it wasn't until 2009 when he opened his first Bank on Yourself policy when true capitalization began. He began to build and lock in his gains. That's the key. We can earn a great rate of return this year and lose it all next year with still a positive average rate of return. But it's not until you put your money in things that don't lose money that you'll finally begin to make money. And as we get into an AI-driven economy where job security is shaky and Bank on Yourself contractual gains continue to matriculate and compound, again, the main thing you want in your financial portfolio is a ever-increasing compounding asset. Ever-increasing compounding asset. You know, our bodies are going to break down. Our cars are going to break down. Inflation is going to break down the value of your dollar. You need an ever-increasing compounding asset that gets better with higher interest rates. So somebody besides me, because I don't want to ramble, how does Bank on Yourself benefit, or does it benefit from high inflation or higher interest rates? Maybe it doesn't.
Evan's muted. I see him talking.
I was going to say the question that I always like, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. And the question that I always get a follow-up from is, you know, well, what about the insurance companies? You know, what's going to keep them from, you know, falling apart and breaking? And you know, the short and quick and dirty answer to that is that, yeah, the insurance companies are man-made as well, and they can absolutely break. That said, what is there that can't? And who else has the same track record that an insurance company like the ones that we work with specifically? You know, where else can you get a track record like this, where you have uninterrupted growth, like you said, for well over a century on your cash value for all of the policyholders? Not even one policyholder in the last 115 years has had a single dollar lost in their cash value. And that speaks a lot to the guarantees that the insurance company provides. So,
well, I do want to make sure we say with properly designed whole life insurance that is mutually owned companies. Not all policies do that, right? So just to be clear, working with, if it's an IUL type policy, and if you don't know what that is and you're saying, wait, they're lying, they're this and this. Well, not all policies are created equal. And that's why we're talking about Bank on Yourself, not just any old policy. So I just wanted to jump in there, make sure that people don't say, hey, oh, but this is different.
No, that's very important. Proper design is absolutely key. So yeah, you have to have somebody who really does know what they're doing. You can't just have your cousin who happens to have a life insurance license go and put one of these together for you if they don't work with the right company, if they haven't been trained properly. You've got to have somebody who knows what they're talking about. So
also, I think, again, this is why I think it's really, really important to work with somebody who is thinking about you. And we ask for a lot from our clients. And we have some of our clients who are watching, right? We ask them a lot of details about, you know, full financial analysis so we can build the right size policy. And a lot of times people just want us to give a quick fix, and we want to like help solve their biggest problems, and it requires like a doctor, a full diagnostic, and that's a hard thing for some people. But if you want a full diagnostic to be able to see, hey, how do we fit this in, that's important, because we're in a volatile world, we're in a changing world, and to be able to have that good foundation in place is important.
We got a good comment here in the notes. Does someone take a stab at Tim's great comment?
Hi, Tim, by the way. So I'll read it out loud for if anybody who's just listening, maybe you're driving or something. I like to share the boy concept with friends, and I would like to demonstrate the exponential function for people, but I struggle to know what number to use. Is 5% an accurate number to use? And I'll remind anyone who has a bank on yourself policy and you're trying to describe this to friends, the number one rule is you do not have to explain everything. You share your story, you share what it's meant to you, then you introduce them to your bank on yourself professional to go through all the ins and outs and all those things. With that being said, what else would you all add? Is 5% an accurate number to use?
I think Mark did a whole podcast on this at one point, but mid single digits is kind of the typical go-to description, and that's on a given year. It could be, it could be like 1%, or it could be 7 or 8%. The reality is that over the past 150 years or so, and again, this is the average, and I know we're not necessarily average people here as far as whenever it comes to finances, but over a 5-year period or 150-year period, 5% growth on average, and I use that term hesitantly, but maybe an apt description, but more broadly spoken, mid single digits, 4 to 6%. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add there is this is after tax. This is money that you're receiving. You can take it as retirement. You are not going to have to pay taxes on it the way it's structured. So it's, when you think about it that way, you're not giving up a portion of it later. So that's
comparing apples to apples, what would it be?
Right.
7%?
Very good comparison. Yeah. And we have to do after tax, right? All those kind of things under current law. The other thing I love to, when I'm trying to introduce this concept to people, it's not about the rate of return. And I love to I'm a big fan of the Socratic method. So I love to ask people, what if it only increased by the same as inflation, right? Nothing more than inflation, whatever that is, 2-3% or 7-8%, whatever. Would you still do it, and why? And have that conversation. And it's, well, because I still get that even when I use the money, right? And all those things. I believe this huge focus on rate of return. I'm reading this book right now called Fire Your Financial Advisor. It's written by an Ohioan named Greg Aller. And what I'm learning in this book is that this focus so much on the rate of return is really a smokescreen. So you don't see all the fees and the ways that mutual funds, index funds, AUM fees, all those things are actually ripping from the returns. And so while Christy has a great point, it is an after tax, it's also an after fees, right? And so many financial advisors pretend the fees aren't there because they're baked into the returns, or they're taken away along with the decreases, right? That you don't even see them. You can't calculate them. It might have a 5% load cost and then a 1% over time, but they never disclose that, right? They have all these things. So that's a continued thing to bring up, is it's not about the rate of return. In fact, the rate of return doesn't matter. Go back to Mark's slide where he shows, right, higher rate of return, but with volatility does more poorly than a smaller rate of return with consistency.
Well said. Well said.
Okay, I think we need to start wrapping up here. Brandon, share your thing, and then I'll help us wrap up.
Just making sure it's not, again, either or, right? You can do both and we have seen even our policies growing, and that return, it might not be in the very beginning of the policy, right? But being able to leverage that cash value in things like real estate or other things as well, we can see that growth. But you have to be doing things that right? Whenever I talk to somebody who's, I don't know, I do notes, right? That's a good thing for me. But knowing who you are and knowing what works, that's an important factor that a lot of times we don't want to ask. That's why we created our nervous system diagnostic tool, is because a lot of times we don't know ourselves. And so if we know ourselves, and then we can deploy our cash value in the right systems, right, things that work for us, doesn't matter the average, it'll be better because we know what we're doing. But that's the problem, is most of the time we're just giving it blindly to some guy on Wall Street and saying, hey, can you hook it up for me? and it's a smokescreen.
And I'll only very briefly add to that. You guys all like the book Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Is it backwards? Is it backwards?
It is, yeah.
All right. So anyway, Atomic Habits, 1% improvement. That's all it is. That's the rate of return in his book. But what's his big point? It's every year compounded at 1%. You'll be 37 times better by the end of the year if you just do 1% improvements every day. What about your money? When do you want it growing at its fastest? Now? No. I want it growing at its fastest in retirement when I can't earn it anymore. I want it growing at its fastest so that I can speed happily into my golden years. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Great. So here's what's great. We've shared a couple books here. I think we're going to put a link to that second book, The Atomic Habits, in the chat. Unfortunately, we don't have a link yet to the new Bank on Yourself book. It is not even available yet. You got a nice sneak peek here. Some of the cool things you're going to find in there. It's not just about whole life insurance. It's about a whole way of approaching life, a philosophy. Grandma's 10-10-10 savings formula is still in there. All those beautiful things that you can adopt along with a Bank on Yourself policy if you choose to, and if that makes sense to you. So here's how you get the book. You connect with a Bank on Yourself professional. I know a lot of us are going to be ordering lots of copies that we're going to send to our clients, to people that are serious about exploring this. You might even get it for free. So connect with us. What I would invite each of us to do is share whatever you feel comfortable with, your website, your phone number, your email, however you'd like people to connect so they can learn more, discover if this is the way that they're going to protect their financial future when none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know what's coming. So I'll start. I'm Amanda Neely. Obviously, that's right there. There we go. And our website is Wealth Wisdom FP. F as in financial, P as in podcast.com. And you can go to /call, CALL, and schedule a call with me, with Brandon, or with Christy. Oh, love that, David. He says he's known James for years, the author of Atomic Habits. Okay, let's go Mark, and then cool. Brandon, Christy, and then Evan. That's your order on my screen.
Love it. Do you mind sharing my screen one more time, just briefly? I'll be brief on it. So what can you see here? Can you see my the shared? So the brand new book's cover should be appearing on your screen here briefly. And you can reach me and my team at lakegrowth.com. That's LAKEGROWTH.com. And if you want a copy of this book, go to kickstartwithmark.com. Kickstartwithmark.com. And we'll get you a copy of this book as long as you mention Bank on Yourself 2025 in the agenda. So it's kickstartwithmark.com. Mention Bank on Yourself 2025 in the agenda of the meeting, and I'll be reminded to send you a copy of the book.
We could not see your screen, though. I don't know why it didn't share, but you want to say it again real quick to where to get the book?
Sure, kickstartwithmark.com.
And make sure you mention...
And then Bank on Yourself 2025.
Bank on Yourself 2025.
Love being here, guys. Thanks for having me on. Go ahead. Who's next?
Brandon, Christy, Evan.
I'm Brandon. Go to wealthwisdomfp.com. I don't know, /call. I think that's what Amanda said. And love to help any way we can. Again, doing a full analysis, finding out how these all fit, because it's not just one thing. We want to make sure we get you all the way to the end of your life with a really powerful ending, I guess. And so that's really our hope. So, yeah, you can find all three of us there.
Okay. Christy and Evan.
Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, David. Just wanted to say I'm here to help people reach financial freedom, help them to sleep better at night, not have to worry or think about the ups and downs of the market, the volatility. You can rest easier here. So really that's what I'm here for. Education is a big thing. You can schedule with me, wealthwisdomfp.com/call.
And I'm Evan. Great House. Great House Financial Solutions is my company, and you can go to greathousefs and that's F as in Fox, S as in Solutions at .com, and you can find my contact information there. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. We look forward, the people in the chat and the people who didn't participate in the chat, we look forward to talking to you again soon. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and further the revolution. We'll talk to you again later.
Awesome. See you.
Bye.